Believe in the Lord your God, and you shall be established. Believe his prophets, and you shall prosper. And the next one's found in Hebrews, the 10th chapter. For yet a little while, and he shall come and will not tarry. Now the just shall live by faith. But if anyone draws back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who draw back to perdition, but of those who believe to the saving of the soul. May God add his blessing to the reading of his word. Now I just want to say in a little introduction to our speaker today, Pastor Zoe Rinton. He'll pronounce that better than I when he comes up here. But I'm sorry if I messed up your name, but I met him. Now he's been here several times in the past year or two, I believe, visiting. But about a month ago, I visited with him in the potluck afterwards and got to meet him, know him a little bit. And I found out he's a retired pastor from India. And they're over here for a little while. Maybe he'll share a little more of that. But after the potluck and he was already out the door, it dawned on me, I should ask him to come and share a message. So I ran out and they were just starting to pull away, and I was able to stop them. And fortunately, caught him in time. And then I found out his son Mark plays the piano, and so we were able to be blessed by that too. And so, Brother Zoe, it's wonderful to have you. Come share what the Lord has put on your heart.
Happy Sabbath, all of you. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Oh, that's better. I'm so delighted to be here once again. This is my third Sabbath in Canaan Valley. And I'm so happy to be with you at this moment. You know, as I stepped in the first time 2.5 years ago, I feel very much at home. More so, I feel much at home today because of all of you. Amen. And I can identify myself with all of you because I started graying my hair. And so you are. And another thing is to preach in a second language often have some flaws or some kind of accented. I hope you'll forgive me for that because this is my second language and almost third language. Nevertheless, God has a message for each one of us. And I'm going to have a little introduction because Elder Kelly told something about me. I came from India. There's 2 years and 4 months ago to be with my children here. And here and in North Carolina. Now we have spent about 1 year and 3 months right here in Oregon. Then another 12 months in North Carolina with our children too. And just to tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm a pastor at PK, as the Americans call it. I'm a pastor child. And even my wife is a pastor child. And we are from a tribe known as Mizo. And I know some of you have been to India. We don't look too much like Indians, facially. because we live just at the edge of India, near China and Myanmar and Bangladesh. Few miles from our home is another 2-3 countries. So you can see that like in America, you said you're American, but you live all the way somewhere in maybe Honolulu or maybe somewhere in Ghana. Just like that. Another interesting thing about where we came from is India is known as a Hindu country, right? The biggest population in the world today. But we came from the smallest state in India, out of 28. But good news is, all my state people, or my tribe's people are all Christians. 90% are Protestant Christians. And all church-going Christian. Church-going Christian. And fortunate to be a Seventh-day Adventist. And I'm going to hint more on the truth about Seventh-day Adventist. But the message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church came late to my people. The first and the only foreign missionary of the Seventh-day Adventist Church that we had in my state came in 1949, December, from this belt. A graduate from Walla Walla College. And he is the only missionary that we had. He spent with our tribe's people for 15 years and left. Nevertheless, today, the Adventist Church grows among my people and the surrounding states. And out of every 100 people you see in the street, 2 can be counted as Adventist. That's a plus point of it. But we have lots of challenges because all our fellow Christians are church-going Christians. They go to church on Sunday, and Sunday you don't have a taxi. You don't have any shop open in my state because all the Sunday-keeping people goes to church. Few Adventists and a handful of maybe Church of God, Seventh-day are the few. They may be plying their taxis or maybe 1 or 2 shops will be open. Otherwise, I'm from there and happy to be Seventh-day Adventist Christian. And today, I was thinking, what message shall I share with you? Because I may be the first Indian to preach in your church. If not, maybe out of the few. And I'm thinking about the message that I should preach. I keep on changing my mind because I have lots of messages to share with you. But I have chosen a topic that can be talk about United States of America, contextualizing with American people. 2 days from today is going to be a, what day? Memorial Day. I know some of you have relatives, or maybe some of you are from the Defense Department, have involved in certain issues of defense of the nations. And Memorial Day, or sometime in some state, around the world we have about 18 countries having Memorial Day or Remembrance Day, like what we have here. But some of you may be going back to the year 1865, the end of the American Civil War, and initiation of the Memorial Day, 1868, or those days, May 30th was celebrated or was designated for that day, but back in 1971, the last Monday of May was decided by the federal government. Now in the Bible, we too have a memorial day in remembrance of the creation. Our memorial day, we all know, by the name of our church, Seventh-day Adventist Church. That is the Sabbath. In memory of God's created act. In memory of God and His powerful act. He created, and even He will create us to His image. And we are going to deal a little about that. And as I said, we are going to contextualize much of this talk with American. And as you remember, our opening hymn, we are living where we dwell. That's a message that I am trying to present to all of you in a nutshell. All the four verses talks about what we're going to study together. And let's see what we can see from our Bible. The first Bible text says, believe in the Lord your God. What does it say? You will be established. Believe in His prophet. You will prosper. To be firm and established, believe in your God. Spiritual prosperity goes along with believing in the prophet. People whom God spoke for our betterment. Our Bible is full of prophets and their messages. There are many prophetic notes in our Bible, which we keep on studying. As church members, you have been studying the book of Daniel and Revelation over and over again. I know you have done so many times. There is a catchword which we find in Daniel chapter 12, Revelation chapter 14, 17, wisdom. The wise will understand. Wisdom is in them. Who are the wise people? The wise people, according to Jesus Christ, Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. You can read that. Which says, is like unto a man who built his house upon the rock. Who is that rock? 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4 says that rock is Jesus Christ. And prophetically in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, we can see the rock. That is the kingdom of Jesus Christ. The eternal kingdom. That's what we are heading to, and that's what we are waiting for. And when it comes to this, as a church, our church is a prophetic church. We know that. Our church is a triumph church. And our church is moving from victory unto victory. As you think back about the Memorial Day, within our American history, at first, it was for the sake of certain group of people who fought in the American Civil War and who died. As time passed by, even all the servicemen who survived were also included. And not only American Civil War, many other wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, veterans. Even the Middle East, all kinds of war, Iraq, maybe some more will be included in the Iraq or other wars too. Some came home victorious. Some came home. And when it comes to Memorial Day in America, they include even people who doesn't make it, whose bodies were never found. They were even counted. That's what our history says. But when it comes to our Memorial Day, as a church, Revelation 12:17 says, keep the commandment of God and have faith in Jesus. And Revelation chapter 14, 2 days our Sabbath school lesson says, the faith of Jesus. And Revelation chapter 19:10 says something else. What? The spirit of prophecy. As a church, we are blessed with that. Who fully have faith in Jesus Christ will not be left out. Everybody will be present in that victorious occasion. The day of victory. The day of victory. Everybody will be there. But let's get some more into what we can study about. Do we really believe in the prophet of God? Believe in his prophecy. As a church, as an Adventist Christian, do we really? When you see a pamphlet here, you'll be seeing the theme of today's message. What do you say? The theme. Marching to victory. Are we going onward and forward to be victorious? Do we count our daily life in tune with what the prophet has to say? We cannot simply rely on what we had learned in the past. We cannot rely on what happened in our life in the past. The most important thing is today. Today. We have to keep ourselves up to date, really, in our spiritual journey. Otherwise, we can be found wanting. That's why we said the Bible speaks so much about the Sabbath. Sabbath is always important, right? Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. God says he rested, he blessed, and he sanctified it. We all acknowledge that. Even Martin Luther, when he wrote his commentary on the Bible back and finally completed in 1530, though he didn't keep the Sabbath, but he said Sabbath was given to human being in his commentary, given to human being before sin. He's acknowledged that. But why didn't he keep the Sabbath? That is my issue and my question. As we dig in the church history and the history of Protestant Christianity, we found something. Now it's a story time. I told our church Elder Kelly, I said, I'm going to mention part of your name. His full name, his complete name, as we said, is Kelly Kolstad. Kelly Kolstad. But I'm going to tell you a story about another Kolstad. Andres Badenstein Kolstad. Andres. In English, we may say Andrew, isn't it? Andres Goldstadt. He was a contemporary. You may not hear, you might have heard. Some of you who studied the history of Sabbath by our church. Somewhere in Korea you might have heard this name. Andres Goldstadt was a contemporary to Martin Luther, born in the same year, a few months older than Martin Luther. And he was a professor of theology who even was instrumental in awarding Martin Luther a doctorate degree. And he was also the same contemporary theologian with John Eck, who questioned Martin Luther in many instances. That's what you read in a great controversy. But what happened to Andres Goldstadt, really? He's a theologian. He was instrumental in training Martin Luther as a theologian and awarded him a doctorate degree. And he was also instrumental in helping Martin Luther draft the 95 Thesis, which was nailed in the church door of Wittenberg back October 31, 1530. 1570, October 31, 1570. He drafted quite a number of them, and Martin Luther expanded to 95 point. But there was a rift between them, and his name was not mentioned in our church history, in the Protestant church history. Why? We talk about Sabbath. He questioned Martin Luther regarding what shall we do with the Bible Sabbath? Is it only for the Jews or for any Christian? After a hot argument, Martin Luther said, thus far, we have led the German people to this day, and it will be too much for us to give them another step. If we have to dwell on one day, it will be Sabbath day. But while he wrote his catechism for the German Protestant church, he said, as Christians, we need one day to set aside for God and his worship. And Martin Luther died at the age of 60 only. And he never preached about Sabbath to be observed by the Reformed churches of his days. But Goldstadt keep on his message. And Martin Luther chose a younger theologian, Philip Melanchthon, to be his assistant. And we hear much about Philip Melanchthon in our churches. Why do we talk about that? The Sabbath is always important. From every generation, the Sabbath truth is never lost in the world civilization. Out of that, the Sabbathrians still survive amidst lots of persecution and lots of ostracizing. They spread in England. Sabbathrians were found in Scotland and others. Finally, when our church began, Rachel of Preston brought to us the Sabbath truth, isn't it? Sisram Sabbatharians who believe in the Sabbath as the first. And we inherit that today as one of the pillars of our doctrine. That is found in the Bible. Are we true to the trust that we have? The Sabbath. That's a story part. And let's see. When it comes to 2 Timothy 2:15, we realize the Bible should be studied intently. And the King James Version language is rightly dividing the word of truth. Rightly dividing the word of truth. And 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 17, 16 and 17 says, all scripture is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, instruction, and correction. That's what it says. And 2 Peter chapter 1, the last two verses, what? Prophecy doesn't come from the will of man. It is from God. And the interpretation of prophecy and the scripture should not be done loosely, isn't it? Not to the will of man. Man of God spoke, and it is not, King James Version says, of private interpretation. And we watch out of that. And we, as a church, says like Martin Luther, when he proclaims it, the just shall live by faith, and protest using the 95 Theses to fight with the biggest church of his days. He said, Bible and Bible alone. Sola Scriptura. Bible should be a proof text of our faith and doctrine. Just in line with what Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy. Rightly dividing the word of truth. Are we interpreting the word of the prophet rightly or truly? When Jesus Christ talked about the last days, what shall be the sign of the last days at the end of the world? Matthew 24, verse 4, 5, 6, 7. There are three things he mentioned. You'll see such a thing in a religious world, in a political world, and what? In a natural world. Three things were mentioned. False prophet, false preacher. Revelation 16, the three unclean spirits we said, from the mouth of the beast, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, we said, right? That's what we studied. False prophet is who? Who doesn't interpret the word of the prophecy rightly, but added his or her own ideas. But Isaiah told us that there is a connection of all the books of the Bible, right? Isaiah 28, verse 10, 13, 14. Here a little, there a little. It's all interlinked. That's what he said. That's what we believe in. Bible should be its own interpreter. That's how we believe it. I'm tempted to speak on many things, but let's see about the spiritual world. The spiritual world that we live in. Because signs of the last days, contextualizing with American Christian history and theological issues that we confronted with. Especially as Protestant Christian around the world depends on the theological sermons, notes, or preaching from America. We all listen to it. We talk about Trinity. And during our Sabbath school, one of you mentioned, Elder Kelly mentioned about Ty Gibson. I'm happy about some of you come all over to my place, India, to help us preaching. Another elder, I forgot your name, you came 2 times to India to help with evangelism, and maybe some other people. Ty Gibson came to us in 1997 while I was a conference man, and we called many of them. But we locate for Ty Gibson as a young preacher, and James Rafferty, you must be knowing his name too. They came to one of the corner of our city, help us establish or plant a church. Today the church grows. Those days they baptized, the baptism was not too high, around 20 people, with some few existing church members around that street. But today it's a big church, having more than 250 members. That is because you mentioned about Ty Gibson, that made me recall a little history of the church. We are blessed with those preaching. But beware of wolves in sheep clothing. Do you understand that? Wolf in sheep clothing. Our evangelical preachers and theologians today don't interpret our Bible correctly as God would like it. What happened? I have to let me cite 2 things that can be mentioned there. One is about the current political, religious, and political situation that we confront. In the name of religion, many people were misled even in the past. You know the Crusades? 200 years of crusades from Europe to go and inherit the Holy Sepulchre, the empty tomb that Jesus Christ was buried, as they said so. That was in 1095, 98 to 1297 AD. So many times, with the direction of the Pope, he went across all those countries from Europe, all those European nations, Christian nations, with the armies. The first crusade was successful, the third was little successful, the sixth. But out of all 11 or 12 crusades, other were failed within 200 years. So many lives were lost. Anyway, by the way, the empty tomb, what does it do with it? When Christ rose again, what did the angel say? He is not here, for he is risen. But trying to get the empty tomb as a position of Christianity. I visited that place in 1987, spent some time in Israel for my education process, biblical history and archaeology. What is that tomb about? Why did I connect that? You know, the empty tomb was confirmed by who? Another history. By the mother of Constantine. Is it right? 300 years after Christ rose again? No. And the empty tombs, what he pointed, the Christian, he thought that this is a very place where Christ was buried. That's all. But that cost many lives. Is it required? But Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 12 to a few verses up, what do we find? If Christ should have not risen again, our preaching and teaching will be in vain. We worship the risen Savior, not the empty tomb, but the misinterpretations and doctrination cost many lives and 200 years of wars. Likewise, today, what is another subject? Today, as many people call it, Jerusalem syndrome or Jerusalem fever. The Zionist movement inculcated their teaching with the Protestant theology because of the misinterpretation and calculation of the 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel. And they said, for the Jews there will be another 7 years, 3.5 years, the false Messiah will be there in Jerusalem. And another 3 years, all Israel will be converted. That's what the Protestant Christians said. But the Zionist movement, which began in 1897, and a mass migration in 1823, and declaration of Israel independence in May 14, 1948, said, then let us draw all these Protestant Christians who misinterpreted the Bible to our side. I don't want to expand too much on American prophecy. That's how it is. Three years ago, October 7, Gaza war. You remember that? No, 3 years running. Many people were killed. What about that? Because of the Zionist movement believe that the third temple should be built in the same spot where the temple of Suleiman, a Muslim caliph, built many years ago. Dome of Dome. The very place should be occupied and built the third temple. And a red heifer, as instructed by Numbers 19, should be sacrificed. A red female or red cow, younger than 3 years, should be sacrificed there, and they're anticipating that. And lo and behold, what happened? 3 years ago, about 5 cows were spotted in Texas, and a special person was chosen from Indiana to take care, a special person who can take care of those cows. And people from the Gaza who keep on destroying Israel thought, oh, the time is here and those red cows have arrived there, the very place where Joshua distributed the portion of the land to the children of Israel, the very spot they are grazing there and keeping it so that it will not have even a single head that is not red. Within a year, two of them were disqualified. And they are now going to be older than 3 years. Meanwhile, they make it out. Why many lives were lost? Why many people were killed? Because our so-called theologians, the evangelical preachers and theologians, I don't want to mention all the names here, try to connect the Zionist movement with the Protestant theological understanding and falsely interpret the 7 weeks prophecy. That's why many lives were lost again. It will keep on. Like the crusades of 200 years of crusades. But as a church, we have the sure words of prophecy, as Peter said. Let us cling to this. And here are the people who keep the commandment of God and have faith in Jesus Christ. We are the remnant church. What news may come on our way? Let us say, does the Bible say so? Is it confirmed through the spirit of prophecy? Let us see to that. The most successful reformation in the Bible history was found in Nehemiah chapter 10. There are 3 subjects to that. One was about marriage, another was about Sabbath, the third one was tithe giving. Who made a commitment to God in that reformation? Nehemiah 10. They said, we will not give our sons to their daughters. And we will not take their daughters for our sons. No intermarriage with the heathen people. That's what all the priests, the Levites, the leaders, the women, and all the children join hands together and make a fresh commitment with God. The second one was what? We will not buy or sell on Sabbath. Nehemiah chapter 10. We will not buy or sell on Sabbath day. Because people from the surrounding nation, from Zidon and Tyre, came and sell their dry fishes on Sabbath day. And Nehemiah said, I stand at the gate and close the gate of Jerusalem so that nobody will come. They spent their days outside of the gate, and he said, I questioned them and probed not. I still see some Sabbath people, keeping people in Nehemiah's day, loading and unloading to their loads to their donkeys. I said, I questioned them. And he said, make sure that all the children of Israel pay their tithes and free will offering. And even the Levites will pay their tithes offering. And how it was implemented, Nehemiah chapter 13 talks in details about the implementation. Sabbath. Are we careful with that? When I read this book, I thought of bringing great controversy, and here I brought only the other writings. Great controversy said the last questions of our issues is going to be the issues on Sabbath and spiritualism. The other day I was talking to some of the members about the Fox sisters and the rise of modern spiritualism in USA. But the key question is, the question of life after death and the Son. That's what the great purpose is saying. When you read about Jesus just before the close of probation and right at the moment of the close of probation, and let you wrote in the early writings, page 33 to 37, such details and what is happening is all in our visit. But one thing that really struck me from early writings, page 37, I think it would be good to read this. This will be I don't know, some of you must have read this. Let me read it. She said, the 144,000 triumphed. Their faces were lighted up with the glory of God. Then I was shown a company who were howling in agony. On their garment was written in large character, "Thou art weighed in a balance and found wanting." I asked who this company were. The angel said, "These are they who have once kept the Sabbath and have given it up." I heard them cry with a loud voice, "We have believed in thy coming, and taught it with energy." And while they were speaking, their eyes would fall upon their garment and see that writing. And then they would wail aloud. I saw that they had drank of the deep water and followed the residue with their feet, trodden the Sabbath underfoot. And that was why they were weighed in a balance and found wanting. This is a very catchy, very strong statement that we find in the other writings. The previous chapter talks about the importance of Sabbath and its observance. Then finally, page 37, she said, I found a group of people in whose garments were written, "You were weighed in a balance and found wanting." Who are they? They were once upon a time Seventh Adventist Christians. They have enjoyed the joy of salvation, preach about it, teach about it, but they have followed the clear water of life with them too, because they have trodden the Sabbath. What do we mean by that? After becoming Seventh Adventist Christian, we said we keep the commandment of God, the fourth commandment. A sign between God and his people, as Ezekiel will say to us, 20:12 and 22. When it comes to all this, after becoming Christian, we may say we have the truth, we have the message. Are we careful in keeping the Sabbath? That is a message. Because many of us, even in this great country, are neglecting Sabbath. The servant of God, Ellen G. White, says, especially you have to be careful, be mindful of the edges, the beginning of Sabbath and the end. Many times, Friday, even after sunset, many of us are still busy with our shopping, marketing, and doing worldly things, right? Maybe we're so anxious about when the sun will set so that we can continue with our worldly things. That's where the servant of God says, be mindful of this. Remember to be careful with the edges, the beginning and the end of the Sabbath things. That is our message to us. Otherwise, having participated in the church activities, we may be found. And finally, I talked to my elder and said, I'll bring up many things because I don't have any of this, gadgets or anything that controls it. Okay, let's see. Therefore, let's wind up with Hebrew, our Sabbath school lesson, the just from the Bible. Our first Bible text, and now second. Our second Bible text try to lead us to something. He who is coming soon, and will not tarry or delay. The just shall live by faith. And after that, who are the just people? There are two important things in which Hebrews chapter 10, verse 34 and 35 try to lead us to. That is, that we have to be persistent and perseverance. We have no right to waste our time. When we believe in God, have faith as that of Jesus Christ, we have to keep on clinging to that faith. Because it says, if we delay, if we neglect, if we give up, all the labor, all the faith that we built up in the past will be wasted away. Therefore, the last text of this says, I have no pleasure with those who draws back. That's what God says to us. If we draw back, God says, I have no pleasure in them. But finally, the servant of God challenges us. But we are not those who draws back to perdition, but we are a group who are still active to the saving of souls. Amen. That's it. The father of faith, Abraham, he left Ur. What? He was on his way to a better place, whose maker and builder is God. And Joseph, Moses did the same thing. Moses, he left all the treasures of Egypt and was, for a season of time, suffering with the people of God. Therefore, as God's people, let us keep our faith alive. Let us cling to what we believe as a church, and as we learn from the Bible and scripture prophecy, let us cling to that. And it is my prayer that all of us will be found a place in the kingdom if we remain faithful. As Jesus Christ said in Revelation 2:10, be ye faithful unto death. What does it say? Anybody can continue with me? And I will give you a crown of life. May that be ours, mine and yours. With that note, let us be on the Lord's side. We may not meet here like this again. I pray to God and wish that all of us will meet each other in the eternal home. Amen. Whose builder and maker is God. God bless us, and God bless you all.
Amen.